That wolf is howling in my ear. It is time for Wild Wednesday. That's what that sound means. And we are joined with Joey Livingston with Colorado Parks and Wildlife. Joey, always a pleasure. Thanks for being here this morning with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, Joey, starting with a very serious topic. So in the past week, there have been 2 incidents, kids under the age of 10 attacked by an elk in the Estes Park area. When it comes down to it, what do our viewers at home have to know, whether they're up in the Estes Park area or enjoying the outdoors in general?
Yeah, so animals like elk, deer, and moose, they get very defensive of their young, and it's that time of year. They've got their young, they've got their calves, they've got their fawns, so they can be extra defensive, extra aggressive, and so this time of year you need to be very careful around those animals. We did have 2 attacks on some young kids, so very important to make sure that you educate your children to make sure that they're wary of wildlife, make sure that they know if they see an animal that they should run away from it, don't approach it. That didn't happen in these cases, but that's still always important to make sure that they're aware of that. For parents, if you are outdoors with your kids, make sure you're keeping them close, keep an eye on the area. Like I said, especially this time of year is when those the female deer, elk, and moose are extra aggressive. Estes Park is is where these 2 attacks occurred. It's kind of a unique situation with elk. There's a lot of elk, there's a lot of people, and so those elk can become more habituated to people. Here in Colorado Springs, you need to be worried about the deer. We've got a lot of deer here in town. This week, just from experience, is when they start having those fawns. So if you see a fawn, leave it alone, don't touch it, is another thing to talk about, but also make sure you keep your kids away if you see a female out there.
I know, I feel so bad for those kiddos, but I get it, that mom instinct, she wants to protect her young, so good messaging there.
Yes.
Joey, I wanted to talk about this bear rescue. This happened, interestingly, on the far east side of Colorado Springs, and I even know the bear are not supposed to be there. They're supposed to be much closer to those mountains. Tell us about this.
Yeah, so the big worry for us is that there's not great bear habitat, there's not great natural food for bears, and so bears in that area are going to have to eat trash. There's really not another option for them, and so in those situations, if the bears are in areas where there's just not great food for them, that's when we will trap and relocate them sometimes. As I've said before, we try to leave wildlife be as much as possible, so bears on the west side, there is some natural food for them, so we'll usually leave those be. But this was a situation where we felt the need to get involved. If there's not natural food, they're going to be getting into trash. Eventually, they could break into a home, and something, a bad incident could happen with an interaction with a person.
Yeah, I'm sure that bear in a much happier home up in the mountains now.
Yes.
Yeah, last topic. This little guy behind us. I love photos like this. Yeah. Of course, there's a rescue story that we want to talk about. There was an incident in Teller County. Somebody came across this owl acting a bit weird, wondering, was it hit by a car maybe? What happened to this guy?
Yeah, so it was actually a CPW employee, Dennis, one of our engineers, so doesn't typically deal with wildlife, but he came across this little guy near the road. So you can tell that that's a fledgling. You can tell just by the feathers. He doesn't have his full feathers in, so I can definitely tell he's a young one.
Got some great video. Oh my God.
Look at that guy.
I spent some time, assessing, taking these phone calls. I would say, you don't see serious signs of injuries. He's able to use both his wings. It's very common for these owls to learn to fly from the ground, and so they'll be on the ground for several days, maybe a week or so, as they're just learning to fly. Usually the parents will be somewhere around and feed them, keep a little eye over them, but nothing was really wrong with this guy, so we just moved him away from the road. He was near the road, so potential for him to get hit. Just moved him off nearby and left him be.
Great teaching moment.
I'm so glad he's okay, too. I'm glad that Dennis was able to help. Awesome job. Joey, thanks so much for being here with us.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
A reminder, when it comes to CPW, you can learn so much about them. Just hit up their website. We made it easy to get to. KKTV.com. Click the Find It tab. I've got a link there. It'll take you, and we'll be right back with more news after the break.